I'm Brian Mullins, the Fox, signing out. Please, dear Jesus Christ, on the pinnacle of Satan's schlong, this video should not be flagged down either. Bye.
Now, I'm not much for blaspheming, but that last one made me laugh.
Oh boy, is it that time again?
It's time to
Brian still is beating a dead horse. It has been, I want to say fun to watch, but I don't ever consider pulling teeth to be a fun experience. And this is definitely is something akin to pulling teeth. He is ranting once again on his drama archive, saying that the anti-CP laws, the CST industry, he's talking about the child sex trafficking industry. Let's go ahead and get into this shit show. I've seen it like 3 or 4 times, but what's one more, you know?
Hi everybody, I am Brian Mullins the Fox, here for a brilliant rant for the Rant Archive exclusively, and I will show you screenshots of the insanity when it comes to the mass flaggers. As you already see, on both channels, it's been mass flagged for completely different reasons. The first one on my main channel being supposed predatory...
Okay, so this right here is not product of mass flagging. Usually if your video is flagged by someone or mass flagged by a handful of people, you won't receive this. It'll tell you more definitely what part of it that people had a problem with or some of this. This right here is saying it violated the guidelines.
Behavior and supposedly sexualizing minors. I was never sexualizing minors. I never had to. I just had to be very specific as to what these anti-CP laws in quotations constitutes as actual child porn.
Child porn in question that he is referring to is explicit material that would be depicting violating acts against a minor, or well, he doesn't actually talk about what he considers to be a minor here. He actually, in this part of the video, but later on, he makes a very defining part that is very curious on why he brought this up in particular. And it's just funny. But what he's talking about here is he believes that there are such things as fake CP that is okay, when in all actuality, it's all wrong, it's all bad, none of it should exist, none of it should be legalized. Oh, and if you don't know, the crux of his argument is that if you legalize all forms of child explicit material, that would somehow make all the trafficking and everything stop, because there'd be no longer a black market need for it.
That was it. Meaning that there's always a way that some creepy predator could get around these laws, because they made no difference. And in fact, because of these anti-CP laws, America is the #1 child sex trafficking capital in the world.
That is a claim that he has 0 citations for whatsoever. If that was actually the truth, it has everything to do with the size of our country compared to other places. That would be the only determining factor, not necessarily that the epidemic itself is based around laws. Now, Brian likes to put like this 2 and 2 together, to where it's because the laws exist that the child predator thing and that the child trafficking industry exists at all, saying that people only want to do it because it's illegal. And he'll go into that a little further too.
And now, before I get to the second reason, I'm going to have to explain myself. There is a statistical correlation with the stricter the child porn laws banning such god-awful material, the bigger the child sex trafficking industry is in said country.
You have showed no citations for that. That claim is you're just pulling it directly out of your ass. You're pulling that claim directly out of your ass, Brian.
And just like I said before, the USA is the biggest one of them all. If one of these days countries like Germany walk back and give lesser punishments for said material to the point where they have to repeal these laws, That means they can no longer allow a black market for shitty material like this, and these rings just eventually go away when Germany, for example, ought to attack them legally for directly trafficking and raping children and falsely touting it as porn. And by the way, in that video that
Okay, so that part right there was really hard to follow, mainly because Brian talks like he has a mouthful of marbles and no noodle in his head. He's not citing actually any laws in Germany, but he's stating that the laws that are in Germany allow a black market to exist. That is not how that works. A black market is illegal by definition. That is not sanctioned. Therefore, it is a criminal act entirely. So why would you think that it's under any sort of like governmental body of a legitimate government? That doesn't make any sense. As like saying we have legal, illegal acts. It doesn't make any sense. That it's something that doesn't make any sense. You're not making sense. You're not making any sense, Brian. What else is new?
that was massively flagged down. I said specifically, calling child rape porn is not just akin to, but literally means you're demeaning and trivializing the rape and the violation against children.
Okay, that's wrong within itself, because if someone were to do these depraved acts with a child, then, and if they recorded it, the thing that is created there is you could call it child abuse material, or you could just call it CP, and it would be the exact same thing. But in Brian's head, there's a difference between pornography and explicit material. It doesn't matter if you call it pornography depicting children or abuse material depicting children. It's all the same thing. This is like calling a submarine sandwich a hoagie. They're both technically the same thing. You're just calling them different because of the spin that's on it. And my point is, they're both illegal under the confines of those laws. And regardless if these things are legal or not, okay. Here's a really good example of how could you tell whether or not it's real or not. Like, porn is fake and all this, and abuse material is this. Okay, Pornhub, you can go look this up. Pornhub had a problem in the past to where people were uploading sexually explicit material that was non-consensual and a product of human trafficking. And it was so hard to tell the difference between the legitimate industrial porn and the trafficked porn. So Brian, if you want to legalize explicit material depicting children, how would you exactly tell on initial glance or initial upload or initial distribution, be able to tell if it was consensual or not? One extreme leads to another. There's no such thing as overstimulation to the point of regret. That's not true for everybody. It's always going to be a gradual step. These are all things I said 100 times over on all the other streams that I've done on Brian, and it's just going to keep going at this point, because for some reason, and I find this hilarious, that he's using the Paramount Mountain as his thing, because he's willing to die on this fucking hill for some reason.
When you're trying to argue against the consumption of this shitty material, do you understand that there's a difference between crossing one line and crossing another? In this context, you're crossing the worst line, worse than the other. It is a battle of the two evils, and you let the most evil one win.
Letting the most evil one win, you're stating that having these laws in place as a blanket statement in order to state that we will not allow this thing to be propagated by an industry as being a hard stance. But you're saying that the child trafficking is an industry within itself. It is not a legitimate industry that pays taxes. It's a criminal enterprise. It's not an industry, it's an enterprise.
For almost 50 years, America. And the worst part about all of it is that not every single child on the planet is wired to be against this material being out there. And not just that, but also playing part of the problem by selling themselves and using themselves as monstrous predatory children and prostitutes, which is a
monstrous predatory children and prostitutes. So what you're saying is that the entirety of this complex is ran and governed by children, and that it's the children's fault?
thing around the world because of these so-called anti-CP laws. This is why prohibition doesn't work. It's like banning alcohol and allowing the mafias and other shitty people to kill each other for more illicit bathtub gin instead of actually focusing on the murders and rapes that happen as a result of prohibition because they've created a black market.
Okay, so he is once again equating prohibition of alcohol to the legalization of child explicit material. These two things are not the same. The mafia didn't get a majority of its power starting with the banning of alcohol. They got into that later. The main way that the mafia first started up was when you had Italian immigrants who were able to get Italian products shipped to America during times of hardship, and they cornered the market on it in order to have legitimate business. But in order to keep that business on top, you either had to have your competition like bend the knee or come into the fold, which created a sense of organized crime that was built around a monopoly. Now, sooner or later, over time, they grew into the distribution of legal substances, one of them being during Prohibition alcohol. Now, not all of it was, quote, bathtub gin. You had a portion of your gangsters and mob runners and whatnot buying moonshine from the South. You had a majority of like your high rollers inside, had their hands in political standing, getting stuff imported in from Canada. You had them having it shipped in from Ireland, all over the world, more or less. Any place where it wasn't illegal to produce, they were bringing it in. The only way that this would actually make any sense here, for him to equate one or the other, you've already made the statement that America is the biggest producer of this, but you keep saying that the laws in America are the problem that allow it to exist. So what is it exactly you're trying to argue here? Because if you get rid of the law and make it to where explicit material depicting children is a legitimate business model for some sycophant, then what the hell? How would this all boils down to, how does creating an industry around child abuse help stop people from being abused and help people who are sycophants? That doesn't make any fucking sense. Or you allow these things to go on, you think that it's going to stop and people will actually seek help? No. People will just destroy themselves because of how easy it is to get a hold of it. Just because something's hard to get a hold of doesn't mean people want it more. That doesn't make any freaking sense. No one wakes up saying, it's really hard to obtain child explicit material, I'm going to go out and get it. No one has ever woken up and said, just because it's hard to get, am I going to go out and go get it? No. People who want to get it will figure out a way to get it. Damn the law, damn the restriction, and damn their very soul. Because it's greed. At the core, it's just about greed and self-satisfaction. And it's disgusting.
They as in the government, of course, because the mafias themselves don't run the government, do they? No, it's literally the government and law enforcement themselves who have created this black market until Prohibition ended. And ever since then, these mafias have...
That didn't make any sense either within itself, because you had the ATF being a ever-present thorn in the side of the distribution of alcohol, the possession and distribution of alcohol. During Prohibition, you would have agents stalking the hills of Appalachia, blowing up any steel they found and arresting, and in some cases killing the producers of alcohol. And mainly it wasn't because it was illegal. I mean, some agents may have thought it was their moral duty to keep this, quote, poison out of the streets. The main focus of the ATF was because it was an illegal business that wasn't being taxed.
Have become low-key in crime, far more obscure, and mostly decimated once they stopped going after the distribution and production of alcohol. But if we do the same with the so-called porn, even though not all of it is porn, some of it is legitimate child sexual abuse material I'm arguing against, but we need to desperately draw that line before we do anything as to whether or not we can get rid of these child sex trafficking rings, not only in a...
So you've already messed up your argument by saying, we'll have this over here, which is okay, and this over here that I don't agree with. So you're creating a scenario where your argument doesn't make any sense, Brian. Because if one thing is still technically illegal, then wouldn't they want it? If we're following your argument? Like, if fictional child pornography, Cub and Lolly, were A-okay, but this other stuff that's depraved or evil isn't? Wouldn't that just allow the market for that to still exist? Well,
America, but all over the world. Then we would start attacking the crimes they actually commit, like child rape, child murder, prostitution of children. We should have done...
They already do that, Brian. When you find someone who's trafficking children, if you find a bunch of shit on their hard drive and you can tie them to all that crime, you just keep stacking freaking charges, Brian. Are you that stupid?
All of that and never only directly attacked the porn and gave child rape, child murder, and far worse things than just the porn a pass. That's the hypocrisy of these anti-CP laws.
In what reality is anyone actually letting this slide? Like, a judge who is given a case, or a case is presented to the judge to where someone is being charged for the possession and distribution of explicit child harm material, they actually find more probable cause to look into it, and he is grilled to it, and he's in it, and if that person's in it, or he or she is in those videos, they're going to try him not only for possession, distribution, but also the violation of that individual depicted in those videos. You don't just get hit with one charge when you go to court. You get hit with a bunch of different freaking charges, Brian. You don't know how the legal system works, do you, Brian? Holy shit, Brian!
Only not doing anything until it's financially inconvenient to not do anything anymore, but they're part of what I called the child trafficking industrial complex. And it's what I should have called the child sex trafficking industrial complex because it's most specific to this sector of predation. That's why I compared it to prohibition of alcohol, because it makes the most sense when you put it all in context and never have to take it out of context.
Brian, nothing you've ever said in your life has ever made any sense whatsoever. I don't know what you're on about. Renaming something, reclassifying something isn't going to make your case any better for half the shit that you talked about. You haven't convinced anyone that there's not something severely wrong with you. If anything, you cemented that you probably shouldn't open your mouth ever.
And the second reason, which is the mirror of it on my secondary channel, according to the mass flaggets and then YouTube, sexually explicit content that features minors, including nudity, isn't allowed on YouTube. There are no exceptions for educational, documentary, scientific, or artistic context. First of all, fuck that guideline. Fuck it in half. I've never shown nudity, I've never included any of such with minors, and I didn't have to.
You didn't have to. Why would you do it to start with?
Didn't even have to show it. And now you're saying I can't even describe it as a way to argue against it being on YouTube? YouTube is literally pro-pedophile.
They're not for what I say. Therefore, they have to be 100% against me. Not the fact that you literally made a video, mind you, a 45-minute long video advocating for the legalization of child explicit material.
They're pro-child sex trafficking. They're pro-child rape. And this is just proof of it. And not only that, but it also sets the worst possible precedent ever. If you can't take me out of context anymore, lie about me, just flag it for whatever the fucking reason is. Regardless if it's inconsistent, hypocritical, retarded, makes no sense, none of that matters to you people. But
So what you're saying is, regardless if everything you just said holds no value, is stupid, is nonsensical, is hypocritical, that doesn't matter to you guys. So what you're saying is you're freaking doing a Freudian slip. You're admitting that everything you just said is hogwash. You keep saying, no one can debunk me, so they have to get rid of me. My fellow human, I think you're human. People have made streams and kept them up where they went over each point, or went over a majority of the points you've made and argued against it. And it burns you up. The only reason why you continue to do this and want to die on this hill is because it gets you attention. Because you don't have anyone else to give you attention. And I'm sorry, but this isn't the attention you want. It's really not. But go off. Keep going. Because I'll just be right back here, making shorts, making streams, making videos, slowly going insane. Because a person like you can actually exist in the same space as me on Earth.
you're gonna go after a furry in Missouri just because he criticized the government. He criticized...
No one's going to go after a furry in Missouri just because he criticized the government. No, people will go after the furry in Missouri because he's advocating for the legalization of child explicit products.
these laws. He criticized and actually exposed the real truth about all of this shit. And luckily, and yes, I'm preventing myself from blowing up, I've archived this on archive.org, on BitChute, on Rumble, and on Odyssey. It's still there. It's not being taken down because they're not pro-pedophile.
Because a hosting site allows you to have something posted does not mean they advocate for the things that you have posted. They have terms of services and guidelines. Rumble does have terms of services and guidelines. If you are doing something or saying something that is technically illegal or advocating for something that is grossly immoral, then yes, they will in fact take it down. So in that case, it's only a matter of time before someone makes enough noise somewhere and it goes down again, Brian. And honestly, it probably shouldn't have been made to start with. I honestly want to know where the fuck you got the idea this was a good idea. Who would think this is... Who isn't a pedophile that would advocate for shit that pedophiles would consume? That's like saying that I don't want to eat shit, but if somebody else wants to eat shit, maybe we should allow them to eat shit until they don't want to eat shit anymore. Fucking stupid, Brian.
At least I hope. And by the way, before I end this rant video, I have something that's gonna shock you.
I highly doubt you have anything of value to say that'll actually be deemed as shocking.
Totally shock you, and it's totally just not surprising and not a controversial take whatsoever. Teenagers are not children. They're not prepubescent. They're just under 18. That's it. Keep the age of consent the same. Don't change anything. Just get rid of these laws. Attack the trafficking and rape and murder of the children that are being used either as prostitutes or using themselves as prostitutes, benefiting not only themselves, but also the predators that rape.
Hold up. So you made the distinction that teenagers aren't children, but you want to keep the age of consent at 18. So why would you want to say that these minors, they're still minors who can't consent to these acts being done to them? Why would you want to advocate for the production of these things and then state that they are not children? So 1-year-old to 13-year-old not okay for you, Brian? 14 to 17 okay for you, Brian? Did you just give us your preferred age group, Brian? Why would you be so specific? Why would you bring this up unprompted? Are you trying to tell us something? Should we be worried about it?
Or even fake the rape of them, which is extremely fucked up, given how much you have to be consistent and more specific about what you're arguing against. I'm Brian Mullins the Fox, signing out. Please, dear Jesus Christ, on the pinnacle of Satan's schlong, this video should not be flagged down either. Bye.
And that was another video from Brian Mullins the Fox.
Hey guys, I guess that's it.
I'm gonna go to bed now, and hopefully God will take mercy on me and he will erase this from not only my viewing history, but from my memory and from the memory of all of yours. But hell, keep that that view on this video, keep that around, and if you feel like it, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, gazing into the void that is currently the hell I live in, and have a wonderful day. Goodbye.